welcome Alex?
Thank you. Welcome me more because I'm going to suggest we put the fan on and I'll shout.
Okay.
How would that be? Do anybody know where the fan is?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Lovely, okay.
I'll do it.
And I am going to try and compete with Tim with his relatives and his testicles because I'm going to suggest that you have, because I was warned that hardly anybody would come being August, I didn't bring many straws. You might find a straw somewhere or other. Can you hear me? Yeah. And as there aren't enough, I'm going to suggest that if you are next door to somebody with whom you share conjugal bliss, you might be able to share the straw, because I haven't got enough straws. And that's when we get to the straw bit. The other thing. Oh yes. Oh. Well, if you've got gin and tonic in it, even better. But I'm going to ask you to breathe through it, so you might inhale and die, but at least you'll die happy. The other thing I was going to say about Tim was, and sex. We're still on sex. I have been undressing Tim because I've been trying. I'm busy, by the way. I'm allowed to undress him. I was trying to locate a muscle about breathlessness, but I couldn't find it. So if I
haven't worked out for years.
if I get that far, I will undress him in front of you. He's given me permission. Can I start yet? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Tell me if my voice goes down. Okay. So breathlessness in health and disease. I've got far too many slides on here, as I was told very firmly by Tim. I'm not going to finish, but I might suck up to Tim. That's not a sexual connotation. I might try and persuade him to let me come back and talk about the last topic, which is hyperventilation syndrome. So you'll see on the list when we get to hyperventilation syndrome. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, tell me if I get too soft. Can you see? The slides are out of focus. I blame Bill Gates. He hasn't got up yet, so I'm going to stand here and read out the bits. Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, so that says breathlessness in health and disease. And along here, because I usually spend 2 days on this, so on here I've given lots of literature, and you can have a look on there. And there is a lovely book on shortness of breath written for non-professionals. So that's what we're covering. And you'll see there's diseases at the top, and then you get the non-diseases at the bottom. And I shall cry when we get to hyperventilation syndrome if I don't have time to do it. But first of all, let's see what patients say and how they describe it. And what they say is, when you can't breathe, nothing else matters. That's the crutch of it. That's the feeling of breathlessness. So I want you to experiment. Take your straw if you can find one. Blow out the gin. And then hold your nose, breathe in and out as fast as you can, and go on until you can't do it anymore. Hold your nose. Keep going as fast as you can. Go on until you can't do it any longer. Okay, you stop. Keep going if you can. The point, labouring, well done. The point of this is to show oh, well done. I can almost diagnose you how long you can hang on for. Okay, you can stop now. Congratulations. Don't die, please. I've polished up my CPR credential. Okay, the purpose of that is to see the wide variation in tolerance. So what did you feel? Those of you who got a straw, what did you feel? What did it feel like? Was it nice when you stopped?
Yes.
Oh, it was. Oh, you're the tough one. You're very macho. Who was it? Anybody not nice? You're going to spoil my experiment. Anybody not like it?
Well, not particularly. There was nothing wrong.
Okay, all right. Then that experiment's a failure.
I hated it.
Thank you. Wonderful. The purpose is it varies enormously between different people. I can tolerate about 2 minutes because I had a bad birth, I couldn't breathe, so I have a body memory, it's called. In other words, that stayed with me, so I'm very frightened about not being able to breathe. That's what's brought me into working with people who can't breathe. So enough of my autobiography. Breathing is the very essence of life. When this function is under threat, it is impossible not to feel frightened. apart from everybody here who is wonderfully healthy and doesn't feel frightened. You're not upholding my theory. So this is it, it's a fear. Fear of breathlessness may be greater than breathlessness itself. So this statement is going to be the most important statement of the whole session, and after this you can fall asleep. Breathlessness, we tell patients, is not harmful. And patients find that difficult to believe because it's so frightening. And this is patients, not you disgustingly healthy lot. This is patients who have breathlessness. It's a very frightening symptom. Therefore, we have to start with that because it may be a symptom of a disease that's harmful, but breathlessness itself isn't harmful. And we have to get that across in order to start the treatment, which I shall hope to try and get to. When it comes to breathing, fear is the worst enemy. So this is again back to, at the bottom in red, this is our list again. I'll be coming back to this list here and there. I've got to check the time. Okay, Tim will dig me in the ribs. So in none of these is breathlessness harmful. And you'll see lung disease can be harmful, so can heart disease, but the breathlessness that is associated with it is not harmful. So they're the diseases and they're the health, which we're going to cover what tiny bit we can. So lung disease and the exercise bit. Exercise makes you breathless, but also it can be part of the treatment. So I want to get that far in this session, even if I don't get any further, because I want to look at the actual treatment of breathlessness. That's a physical treatment. I'll mention the medical treatment because I haven't got a slide. The medical treatment of breathlessness is morphine. And the reason I say that is that if you have a loved one who is near the end of death and they're given a morphine pump and they're not in pain, it's not because it's Dr. Shipman or gospel. It's because the morphine is good for breathlessness. So they may be given it for a sensible reason. As well as pain, it's for breathlessness. So we're going to look first of all at lung disease. I'm going to look at COPD and asthma. COPD, you've got lots of information on your chairs about what it is. It's a combination of chronic bronchitis and or emphysema, both caused by smoking. Usually chronic bronchitis, the smoke damages the airways and causes phlegm. Emphysema, the smoke damages the lung sacs and the air sacs at the bottom and causes breathlessness. Don't get cross with patients for smoking. Nicotine is as addictive as heroin. Blame East Sussex County Council, the leader of which has just awarded himself 37% pay rise, and they've almost completely obliterated the anti-smoking stuff. So don't make patients. This is a patient who lost his voice box to cancer from smoking, and he was so desperate he carried on with the smoking for his tracheostomy. So it's that desperate. So do never get cross with anyone for smoking. It's like getting cross with a heroin addict. So there's a very nice book on the table here, lots of stuff on the table for you to read. Asthma is the next one I'm going to say. I'm going to say two things about asthma. One is inhalers. If you have asthma and you need your blue inhaler more than 3 times a week, you need to be under an asthma specialist. That's the guidelines. And most people don't know that. Most GPs say take it whenever you feel like it, take it 4 times a day. Wrong. You need to take it for very specific reasons. And if you overdo it, that has been implicated in asthma deaths. There are 2,000 asthma deaths a year in Britain. Everyone, in theory, is preventable. If you have asthma, you're very unlikely to be in that category. It's only something called brittle asthma. It's such severe asthma you can't work. But every single one. In Glasgow, they did an experiment. They completely eliminated asthma deaths by following guidelines. So if you need more than 3 a week, make sure you're under an asthma specialist, asthma nurse, asthma clinic, GP with a special interest in asthma. What was that about? Oh, I think I've finished. Oh yes, the other thing I was going to say about asthma is it may be that you have hyperventilation syndrome. They overlap. And if I don't get to talk about hyperventilation syndrome, you can either wait until I bully Tim to let me back or Google it, you'll find all about it. Heart disease. I'm going to look at one heart disease, and that's heart failure, again because it's not understood very well, what it is and what it isn't. These 3 can get very confused in the press. Heart failure is not a heart attack. As you know, a heart attack is when part of your heart muscle loses its blood supply, leading to either nothing, no symptoms at all, or death, a huge variation. Heart failure is not a cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest is just the process of the ordinary old-fashioned process of dying. Occasionally, you can be pulled back if you get CPR early enough, but basically it means you're dying. And you can see what the press does. This, I must have got this from the Daily Mail. Promise I don't read it, but this is sort of from the Daily Mail. So they said he died of a suspected cardiac arrest. You don't die of a suspected one. If you die, you've had a cardiac arrest. And they said he died of a suspected cardiac arrest. He died of his doctor giving him too much propofol, I think, didn't he? So he had a cardiac arrest, which meant he was dead. You see how the terminology can be quite confusing. So heart failure means your heart is not pumping as well as it should. That's all it is. It's not big and dramatic. It's not nice. It gives you fatigue, swollen ankles, breathlessness. It's very slowly progressive over years. Eventually you may die of it, you may die of something else. That's what heart failure is. Treatment is exercise and water tablets. A tiny bit on neurological conditions. And this is because post-polio syndrome is coming up now. The last epidemic was 60 years ago, so they're now getting problems with breathlessness if their respiratory muscles were affected by it. And the other thing that's coming up now is thalidomide. Again, that's 60 years since the thalidomide scandals. So you can see what's happened if you've been bringing out the rubbish with your teeth for years. You can see all the problems you're going to get as a result of that. But the thing I'll say about breathlessness related to neuro conditions is ask the patient, not the physios. We often get it wrong. I hope I've only got it wrong once because I learned from a patient. We can overdo it. We're very physical people. Come on, do your exercise. And neuro patients need to tell us what they need. We don't tell them what they need. Otherwise you get fatigued and it can last for days. So very specific management of breathlessness in neuro diseases. Age is another one, doesn't stop you exercising. This is Dorothy, aged 100, taking part in the Tokyo table tennis marathon championship. I don't think she won, but she was pretty good at taking part. End of life, the only thing I'll say about the end of life, apart from you can get breathless, is that it's changed now. This is a traditional view. So there you are with your, getting all your curative medicines. Suddenly they say you're dying, offer some real things with you. It's not like that anymore, it's like that. So what they're doing now is all the way through, you're getting treatment to help with the disease, but you're also getting treatment to help with symptoms. All palliation means is management of symptoms, that's all it means. It doesn't necessarily mean you're dying, but often people that want to go home again. They're probably going to die in the reasonable future, but it's not, palliation doesn't always mean you're dying, it's management of symptoms. Exercise at the end of life. The art of exercise at the end of life is to do what the patient needs. Now, you like me will probably like to not have someone wiping your bum. You want to wipe your own bum as long as possible. So we will work on exercises for that. Some people don't like their spouses bathing them. It's easy for us to forget that. So some people might like to work on exercises for that. So exercise is very specific for self-management. Exercise, okay. Now exercise is both causes breathlessness, but it's also a treatment for breathlessness. This is why I'm putting it here. So we're now looking at the treatment, the physical treatment of breathlessness. And this is what people say when they're breathless and you say, I'm now going to do some exercise with you. They say, but exercise makes me breathless. So we have an important PR job to do. And we go to this vicious cycle. Breathlessness, inactivity, lack of fitness, more breathlessness. All makes sense. And as you probably know, depression fits into that vicious cycle now. And exercise is prescribed for depression now. I'm sorry about that. And cold water swimming. You've probably had a cold water swimming for depression. Works pretty well. I've never tried it out. Okay, so exercise causes breathlessness and it treats breathlessness. So we're now looking at breathlessness management. And I'm going to start with the environment. Most people are breathless like fresh air, like sometimes they're very sensitive to heat, very sensitive to cold, but usually they quite like moving air. And that's why the second treatment works, which is a fan on the face. Now this, don't tell anybody, but I'm ashamed to say I got this from Amazon. They film their taxis, don't they, Amazon, offshore. But you need it, may I borrow you? You need one with soft blades, so I won't touch you, so it doesn't hit your cheeks, because they like it close. And you want one that works, it's quite hard. Don't get one at the checkout at Townland, it's no good. And you can put it around your neck. I won't because it muddles up. Is it Albert? Andy, almost right. It'll muddle up Andy's stomach. Okay, so down on the face. So you might like that if your friend is breathless. The way it works, it stimulates one of the branches of the trigeminal nerve. Really weird, isn't it? So oxygen does not help breathlessness. And the reason for that funny face is patients find that hard to believe, but it does not help. If it does, it's part of placebo. Placebo is very powerful and often quite important. It might be the blowing on the face of the oxygen that might be helping the breathlessness. Positioning. Now this is only in relation to emphysema. That's your chest shape, isn't it, pretty much? And that's how you, this is how you breathe. That's your, oh, it's not good. Because it's animation, and then there's your diaphragm, the red bit. And when you breathe, your diaphragm levers down on your liver, so your ribs go out and your abdomen goes out. That's how you breathe. If you have emphysema, your diaphragm is flat, and you can see that at the bottom. So it's no good contracting your diaphragm, you just put it in. The reason it's flat is if you have narrowed airways, you have to hold your ribs out all the time to yank your airways open. You can see why they get so exhausted. So very simple management is leaning forward. If you've got friends with COPD, try this out. You lean forward, you just dome the diaphragm. I'm trying to get ambulance people to learn this because they say, relax, lean back. The last thing you want with COPD is to lean back if you're breathless. Your diaphragm's completely out of it. So try that one. Breathing techniques, no time, sadly. I'd love to go through these, but it take too long. But my business card says if you want to phone me up, I won't charge for talking on the phone. Exercise, okay. So exercise is how am I doing? Tim? Am I all right?
Couple of minutes.
Okay. Exercise causes breathlessness, treats breathlessness. Firstly, before anything else, desensitization to breathlessness. There's our mantra again. Choose your exercise. So if you're tired, get a ball. Keep one in the car. If you're got a little bit more energy, get a TheraBand. You can get these at what's it called? Proctor's. And tie it onto the edge of the chair. Use it watching the TV if you still watch TV. And if you've got stairs are wonderful. If you live in a ground floor flat, move immediately. Any way you like it, just exercise. Usually any way you like it, not all of those. 4 tips: pacing, breathlessness, but not speechlessness. If I say nothing else, you can shut me up to nothing. To decide how fast to exercise, you tell yourself, I can get breathless but not speechless. Breathlessness doesn't do me any harm. And if you exercise so much that you're speechless, that's brilliant. It's enough to get you fit. If you want to do more fun, you can get crazily breathless, won't do you any harm. But that is a very useful mantra to tell people. Exercise until you're breathless but not speechless. Achy muscles good. Painful joints bad, that makes sense. Like simply tapping the shoulder. Oh, reminders. The thing about exercise is little and often. Post-it notes, listening to Paul massacred Vivaldi on the phone. Red traffic lights, hooray, a red traffic light. I can pick up my squeeze ball. So look at this. And the bottom down here, this is called grey bar time. You know what, Bill Gates, you're probably all superior Apple people. But if you're like me, a horrible, inferior Bill Gates person, you have a lot of grey bar time. Grey bar time, oh my poor dog, I live over there, she hates. Grey bar time is when it's processing, and that is another useful time to do your exercise. Quadriceps, I'd love to do that with you. And the 4th tip is in this weather, remember your fluid balance. I think I'm going, oh, get a dog, there's my dog. If you don't like a lot of exercise, get a greyhound. All they want is a squashy sofa, and she will let me take her for a walk occasionally. But, so that's for people who don't want a lot of exercise. Remember, breathlessness is not, where's Tim? Are you harassing me?
Not yet, but I will.
Oh, okay. Relaxation. Oh, I'd love to do this one. I can't do it. It's a yoga technique. Singing is brilliant. That's the muscle I was trying to get on Tim's muscular torso, because there's a muscle that is very good. If you have COPD, if you sing, it's using this very specific muscle. It's called latissimus dorsi. You can look that up and help you see it. Pulmonary rehabilitation. This is one thing I must say, which is we have a local pulmonary rehabilitation service, and if you go to your GP or another health professional or VGH, they will refer you. There's a bit of a waiting list. It takes anybody with these things, and they go through all that education stuff, not just the exercise, but breathlessness, management, everything. In spiritual muscle trainer, you can get this on prescription. It's called a Power Breathe. It's on the leaflets down there. Are you picking up that I'm rushing? I must, poor old. Oh, breathe easy. The other one I must say. Breathe easy. Local self-help group. If you know anybody with chronic lung disease, third Tuesday of every month, just Google Breathe Easy Eastbourne. You can find it. It's for people with lung disease. You know how much benefit you get from each other. Much more than health professionals. Okay, I'm going to promise I'm going to stop. Okay, I'm not going to get there. Thank you very much. I want to get my donuts slides. I'm trying to get my device in my way. Goodbye.
Well, there we are. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. Brilliant. We had to whiz through the slides at the end. There were quite a few, but that was fantastic. I mean, I know nothing about breathlessness. I knew nothing. Now I know a whole lot more. It's a fascinating talk. So, does anybody have any questions for Alex? Anybody? We're all pretty breathless in here, I guess, because of the heat. But is anybody waving or you're fanning? Anybody got any questions for? I like the link with. Well, one of the slides I saw, there was a link with obviously exercise and activity and depression, I think, and you linked that up with breathlessness. And I saw a lovely tweet, I think it was from Peckles the other day. It said, to the person who nicked my antidepressants, I hope you're happy now. It was you, Peckles. Yeah. You tweeted that. Brilliant. Anyway, sorry, that's not very serious. So, yes, hand.
I've got a friend who's got COPD, and she's been told to exercise, but I don't understand why.
What happens is, if you have COPD, you're breathless. If you're breathless, you hate exercise because it's very frightening being breathless. That's why we have to go through this whole thing of breathlessness not being harmful. That's why that's the most important thing. Once we've got over that, we then develop with them an exercise program that fits them. So we don't say you've got to run around the block. We say, what are you doing now? Maybe you could try a little bit more. We go through it with them. See if your friend can get on the pulmonary rehabilitation program, the local one. RESPS, RESPS. Right, I'll get the slide back if you want. If anybody wants my slides, they're not copyright, just write to me. It's on my website, alexhough.com, my email, if you want to phone, my card's there. If you want all the details that are on the slides, like the local pulmonary rehab group, then that's the way to do it, because it's really comprehensive. And if he wants to join the local Breathe Easy, that's wonderful. I honestly think patients learn more from each other than the likes of us lot.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Alex while we have Sorry. I'm just doing this. Yeah. Far away.
I'm just wondering, is breathlessness actually a symptom of immediate, like the heart failure or cardiac arrest? What does that mean? Is the connection between
now if you've got a couple of hours, I can go to this. Tim won't mind. The physiology of breathlessness is fascinating, and it's very much linking mind and body. That's why we get rid of the mind bit, which is the unnecessary fear, and then we work on the body bit. So breathlessness itself, I mean, the one example would be with COPD. If you're breathing a hyperinflated chest, it's really hard work because you've got to pull your ribs out. All you've got to breathe with is your neck. You've seen people with breathing in their necks because their diaphragm's shot because they've got a hyperinflated chest. So, was that your question? Physiology of breathlessness? Why do you get
extreme breathlessness? Would that suggest possible preempt to heart failure or cardiac arrest?
Yes, it can be a symptom of a harmful disease. So breathlessness is not harmful, but it can be a symptom of a harmful disease, and I put that up there, that lung disease, heart disease, and some of the neuro diseases, the diseases themselves are harmful, or maybe harmful, most of them are, but the breathlessness associated with it is not harmful itself.
Okay, thank you. Well, you
Grab me in the break. I'm here all the
Yeah,
way. Certainly I can't stay all day, all night, but I'm very happy to talk to anybody in the break.
Well, so you answered that in far less than 2 hours, Alex. That was wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions?
Days.
Any other questions? So I'm hoping to do this to see waving hands and but I can't see. Yes, question back here.
It's not a question actually. On a lighter note, I do recommend a classic of French cinema, Nouvelle Vague, called A Bout de Souffle. That means breathless. It's a classic.
Have you seen
Why have I
that?
heard of it? No.
Jean-Paul Belmondo and the lovely John Seberg.
What was the name of it again?
Breathless.
In
A Bout de Souffle.
A Bout de Souffle.
Do I have to speak
Fantastic.
No.
Subtitled.
I don't know
Subtitle.
about anything
Yeah,
except
yeah.
breathing.
You'll end up breathless. Watch it.
Then I'll get panicky.
Excellent. Well, if there's no more questions, which I can't see, and forgive me if I've missed a hand, then can we thank Alex in the usual way?